It's Tuesday, December 17th, 2019. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're going to be covering on today's episode. All right, Microsoft has clarified a few more details about their upcoming new console that was announced last week, including the name and whether you can play your Xbox 360 games on it. And we'll have Sam Hodges joining the show. Sam is the CEO and co-founder of Vouch, a new kind of fully digital insurance platform developed for startup businesses and entrepreneurs. And our own Roland Glom will stop by to discuss the ongoing electric vehicle battle centered around Elon Musk's Tesla Cybertruck versus the upcoming all-electric version of the Ford F-150. And we heard your emails and messages demanding more robots. So that is what you're going to get on today's show. We'll talk about Agility Robotics' new robot Digit and how it is learning to respect the personal space of humans. All that and more coming up on Digital Trends Live. Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. Of course, we broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All while broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you're finding us, you can join in the conversations that we get to have, and that is part of the fun. Let us know what you think, good or bad, whatever. We want to see your comments. So go ahead and drop them in there. We'll read them, I guarantee. And as we go throughout the show, that's part of the fun that we get to have here. So let's get started on this right now. I'm Greg Nibbler, joined by Adrienne Warner. Hello, Adrienne.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here as always.
Yes, indeed. It is weird that it's December 17th when I just said that out loud. That seems like...
I know, it seems late in the year.
Late.
And I'm
yes.
like, oh, are we ready for 2020?
No.
I mean, it's coming around the corner.
I mean,
real
yes.
hot, real fast.
Real hot switch on that. All right, let's do this.
No one saw it coming.
Yep. Let's talk about some trending news.
All right.
Right now, this first one has to do with Amazon and an announcement that they made, in particular with their marketplace application, which is essentially the third-party sellers on Amazon, banning them from using certain FedEx services. And this comes amidst Amazon's real big push to slowly become their own shipping organization, and actually not even slow anymore. They have a tremendous investment in that. But this banning part of FedEx is a huge move, I think. It's the FedEx ground service and home service from the marketplace. They're saying they can still use FedEx Express, but explicitly saying you can't use these services and still get that Prime designation. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. I mean, sellers can still use, like you said, some FedEx shipping options for I think it's non-Prime items. But
yes.
Yeah, this really comes after Amazon and Xbox did not Xbox is one of our next stories. And FedEx, too many X's, after Amazon and FedEx did not renew their contracts this summer. So we kind of saw this coming, but the shame of it is that it's really going to affect small, businesses, marketplaces, especially right during this holiday rush where people are really trying to get things out the door cheaply.
Yeah, that's why I understand why Amazon's doing it. They're in a battle with FedEx, but really, like you said, it's going to affect all these small.
Yeah,
you can't just wait another 2 weeks.
No.
And institute that. I mean, the fact that they're doing it right now just does seem a little bit intended as far as how they would affect FedEx. But that's part of what this is, and Amazon's made it no secret that they want to pretty much own every point of distribution when it comes to their platform.
Yeah, they've invested an insane amount of money in fulfillment, and just in the last quarter alone, and they're quickly surpassing UPS and FedEx. I mean, they will definitely be, from each end, from order to fulfillment, they will be owning everything at some point in the near future. Yeah,
with their own airline, they've heavily invested in that. I believe it's in Kentucky. They've got a place where they're going to have space for it's like 100+ airplanes that are just Amazon airplanes, and then let alone what else they're going to be doing. So it's a pretty big move, and part of this further pushing of Amazon to really control everything. So let us know what you think about that. Maybe if you're a small business owner or you're an entrepreneur.
If you sell things, or if you are somebody who buys things from these small sellers, see if you're going to be affected by this. Or you're going to have to pay that premium price for FedEx Express, or are you just going to go with ground?
Right. Let us know. And continuing on here, from FedEx to Xbox.
To Xbox. That was the next one. So, the Xbox Series X, there's a couple announcements that have come out for it. So they have confirmed, Microsoft has confirmed that it will launch with backwards compatibility. So you will be able to play those Xbox One games, those Xbox 360 games, even all the way back to the original Xbox, potentially, depending on, if people want to upgrade their games for that. Another big announcement is that Xbox Series X is just Xbox.
Yes. This is a little bit confusing.
Yes.
But they're actually doing this to alleviate confusion, even though that didn't work out so well.
Didn't work so well.
So, and we'll talk a little bit more about the backward compatibility here in a second too. But just talking about the name, so what they clarified is that everybody's been calling it the Xbox Series X, and this is after we all knew it as Project Scarlet, which was still a pretty cool name. But they revealed this last week during the Game Awards, and it said Xbox Series X. What they're saying is it's Xbox Series X, lowercase. So that's the series of the new Xbox, but it's actually just called Xbox.
So it's kind of like you think about a make and model of a car.
Yeah.
It's like that. So this is the Series X of Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what they're trying to get everybody to get back to, is just saying it's the Xbox. And this is the one that's going to be coming out towards the end of next year, the end of 2020, in competition with the PlayStation 5, which is going to be coming out around the same time. It's a big coming up year for gaming.
Absolutely.
But that backward compatibility is going to be a really big issue, and that's why it's important that they're doing this, because I think just learning, hopefully, and it does seem like both of these platforms learned, is that people invest a lot in their games.
Absolutely.
You don't, and that's fine. If you want to go out and get the brand new one because you want to play all that stuff, that's great. But you're not going to have a huge catalog of games. You still want to play your old ones.
Yeah, exactly. You used to previously have a different huge catalog of games, and because these consoles are so expensive, and a lot of times people wait a couple years after they release to actually invest in one, and then suddenly, 2 or 3 years later, another cool one comes out. It's a shame to lose all of your gaming progress.
Yeah. So that's going to be good. They are saying that that's going to be happening as part of it. That one of the Microsoft representatives even said that he's been playing his Xbox 360 games on the thing. So just kind of showcasing it. Yeah. Talking about that. So that's part of the news coming out regarding gaming. Just that, it's going to be the Xbox and backward compatibility.
I think it's going to be a really big year in 2020 for backwards compatibility, because they talked about it so much at E3, and this, follows that rumor.
Yeah, and PlayStation also announcing that they're going to have that same thing as well for their upcoming PlayStation 5 console. And
speaking of PlayStation,
some more news from PlayStation. So this is some of the news, the trending news today. This has to do with the DualShock 4 controller. Of course, that's the PS4 controller. And a new add-on that PlayStation has announced that adds you extra buttons on the back of it. So it's an attachment that you can put onto the PlayStation 4.
DualShock controller.
Yep, onto the DualShock, the DualShock controller itself. And so you kind of clip it onto the back. It lets you program 2 new buttons. It's got an OLED screen as it's advertising, which will tell you what it is that you're programming in there. And then it's got still the headphone jack there, so you can still plug in. I mean, that's a cool add-on. It seems like it's weird timing, and
it does seem weird timing with the PlayStation 5, shortly hot on its heels. It's only $30, so it's kind of it's a nice thing to see, but it's not even coming out for the holidays, so we'll see how quickly this actually catches on. I do want to say that after seeing the Xbox Elite Series controller, I have a feeling that this is slightly in response to that, because that controller is so expensive, but it's so programmable, and then this one is like, okay, this is just a little bit of customization for not that much extra money.
Yeah, that you can clip on. Is this something that you would pick up?
I wouldn't think about it until recently. I think this would be really helpful in boss fights, or if you're a competitive gamer, when you're trying to spam your special attack. It's really far out, and it kind of cramps your hands after a while.
Right.
I have short hands.
So it's for the short-handed people.
It's for short-handed people like me. I might get one.
Well, that's an interesting take on it too. But it's just the fact that they haven't done it before. It's not coming out until after the holidays.
What was with the wait?
Yeah, why wait until right now, right before you put out this new console? But maybe there's more to it that we don't know about.
Yeah, and we'll see if it works with the PlayStation 5 controller. If it does, then actually I think that could be something worth investing in.
Yeah, you can take that and transfer it onto that, or if the DualShock 4 controller works with the PS5, just in general.
We'll see.
Maybe that would be cool.
That would be very cool.
But I wonder how much this drains the battery too. Just putting that on there, because the battery life on those things are not long.
It is not long at all. I am constantly swapping mine out.
Yeah.
After about like 2 or 3 plays sessions.
Yep. It's already completely drained, and it's really annoying when it happens. So maybe they have
Think
extra
about that,
battery
Sony.
life. Yeah, put some extra battery life in there. All right. Well, that's some of the news from PlayStation regarding the DualShock 4 controller that we've been seeing today, keeping you up to date with the trending news. What do we have this next?
Yeah, so some more trending news, more from SpaceX. So they successfully deployed another satellite into orbit this past Monday. However, they were not able to catch the nose cone that came down from it. So they've had kind of a couple mishaps in catching their.
Yeah, and this is part of the the whole push for reusability.
Right, absolutely.
And they've had some success with it, but this one they really tried to go all out. So essentially the nose cone, the fairing is in 2 pieces, and what they've done before is they'll catch one in a giant net and let the other one fall into the ocean. This time they tried to catch both
the
of them.
whole, yeah.
Yeah,
and they've sent out 2 ships, it sounds like, but they, they have a lot of controls, obviously, to help guide it into place, with their GPS system and everything, but like it's still very tricky to maneuver. And as soon as it gets into the ocean, salt corrosion, things can happen to it. So they're really, really aiming to make this as reusable as possible.
Yeah, that saltwater damage is a big thing. And when you think about it, each one of these are $6 million. This is a $6 million fairing. So if you can recover that, obviously that saves a lot of cost,
Yes.
with this minimal amount of extra work that you have to do on it. And that's one of the big things we're seeing with all of these companies as they're trying to make sure that every little piece of it is as reusable as possible. SpaceX, they have had a lot of success with
Yes.
it. But to give just some context too, these things are 13 meters tall, 5 meters wide. They weigh about 1,000 kilograms. That's according to them. That, as you mentioned, when it's coming back down, they do have it's something called a parafoil, which is kind of like a parachute.
Okay.
So it's GPS enabled, so it can kind of slow it down and try to hit that ship
And then they
in the
have
middle of the
some
ocean.
thrusters, correct? As
Yeah,
well?
I believe so on this as well. So it's got some different ways, to slow it down. But that is a tough thing.
That is very tough in the middle of the ocean.
Middle of the ocean, catch one. I mean, in context, that's a tiny piece of equipment. I mean, it's big, but it's tiny in that context. Falling down from the sky, try to catch it in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, that's a hard job.
Tough. That sounds like a video game I don't want to play.
Yeah, but for $6 million,
I guess I'd try.
Yeah, I'd try. Maybe there's a reward for that or something. But that's what we're looking at with SpaceX. So that's their launch. We also have coming up, I believe it's on Friday, is that Boeing is going to be launching their Starliner, doing a test launch of theirs. So everybody's really it's really been a space launch kind of season right now. So you've got everybody, that's what I'm going to call it.
Space launch season.
Space launch season, which is going to become more and more next year too. As we round out 2019, we're going to see a lot more of these launches until eventually, I think this year, we're going to see the launch of some humans in one of these private space endeavors. But
that'll be super exciting.
Yeah, I think they got to do some more tests clearly, but that's what we're building toward. I think by the end of 2020. We'll definitely see some humans going up.
And hopefully when they come back down, we can catch them.
Yes, catch them in a giant net. That would not be fun.
No.
All right, we do have one final trending story two that we want to talk about. And this is, as we're going through, we just try to keep you up to date with everything as it's happening in technology and make sure that you know. And again, we are live, so we do want to see your comments as you have them about whatever it is that we're bringing up here on the show, and let us know what you think about this. This one has to do with autonomous flight, in particular, autonomous taxis, which is something we see a lot of companies working on. And there is a company called, I want to get it right, Skyrise. Skyrise, who has now debuted a video showcasing some of their technology. So Skyrise was a company that had been kind of secretly building it. They unveiled themselves earlier this year, but now they have showcased some technology that they've been working on for autonomous helicopter flights. So this isn't creating a new vehicle, it's adapting an older vehicle.
Yeah, and that's what's really, really cool about this is that they are applying their technology to an already existing helicopter instead of, we've been seeing these models from anything from like Uber to, I forget, Bell helicopters.
Bell is working on it, a lot
We've
of
seen
companies.
these very futuristic looking helicopters. This is one of the first times we've seen a helicopter being piloted autonomously with already existing, infrastructure.
retrofitted.
Retrofitting essentially.
So this is a modified Robinson R44. So that's what that is. That's an FAA approved helicopter.
For you helicopter nerds out there.
Yeah, for all you helicopter buffs. Yeah, so that's that one. But the key here being that it's already FAA approved. So that's not one of these brand new vehicles. It's just like a drone, like a flying drone or a something like that. This is already approved. So the tech is, they're already over one hurdle, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. Is talking about that side. So this system, the way it does is they said it automates a few specific aspects of the flight. They said it's similar to cruise control for cars and under high-level guidance from the pilot. So there's that aspect, but there's also the fully autonomous aspect of it. So they're really building up a lot of technology to encompass a lot of different issues, to where they said that basically their goal is going to be you punch in where you want to fly to, and it just flies you there and just takes you there. And that's a pretty incredible achievement. There's a lot of tech that has to go into that, and a lot of work with existing infrastructure when it comes to the FAA or whoever's governing the air, the airspace of wherever you're at. Volocopter is another company that's been working on this. They did it with Finland, I believe they tested it out, and then Germany.
They tested it out with people actually, or
I believe there was people in it.
Oh, cool.
But what they did is the key thing for them was testing and integrating into the airline structure, like the airline system that was already in place, so that they could communicate directly with it, and that's going to be big.
Yeah,
Make sure you don't
absolutely.
have
Especially in
accidents.
congested cities. I mean, which is what this is what this is aiming to help alleviate is the congestion in cities and getting from place to place with commuting. So we'll see.
I'd be totally down for it.
I'm super excited about it. I've never been in a helicopter. Have you?
I've been in once, yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know about an autonomous one. That would be a little bit unnerving, but I'd still do it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to sit in traffic, there's a lot I would be willing to put up with and risk.
All right, let's make a list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. Well, I mean, until I get my jetpack that I can just fly directly up here to the building, then I guess I'll have to
Just knock on the
deal with
window
this.
every day.
Yeah, just open up the window, let me
Craig's
fly
back.
on in. Like, give me a little landing pad out there, and yeah, I'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's all I want. I mean, it's not asking
even
much.
in the rain.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'll get a little, slicker on or something, and I'll be just fine flying up in my jetpack. All right. Anyway, enough about that.
Yeah, let's save that vision for.
Everybody just think about that at home. All right, we've got a lot to get to here today. So a lot of technology we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking a lot about Cybertrucks, electric vehicles, keeping you up to date on all kinds of things. But first off, before I talk about what's coming up next, thank you, Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
As always, it is fun. So let's talk.
So fun.
So fun. Let's talk about what's coming up next. We have a video actually from Riley Wins. We've got a series on YouTube called The Deets, where Riley will go in depth with a specific subject and kind of explain it out a little bit more in a short video. They're really great, and we've got a whole bunch of them. Check them all out at YouTube. And right now, though, we're going to play the one about net neutrality, I believe, is what we're going to be talking about. So what Riley's going to kind of boil down and explain. So that's coming up next. We are broadcasting live, so drop in your comments as we go throughout the show. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
It's the holiday season, and politics may be a forbidden topic at your next family gathering, but there's another topic that you can and should discuss: the future of the internet. Net neutrality has sparked the biggest internet debate since the dress. So here's everything you need to know about the issue and how it could change the internet as we know it. You're watching The Deets, a show where we demystify the technologies that are shaping the future. I'm your host, Riley Wynn. So what is net neutrality? Well, net neutrality means treating everything on the internet equally. It's a guiding principle that preserves an open internet. You get the same connection speeds as well as the same access to sites such as YouTube and Netflix. And your internet service provider can't show any preferential treatment anywhere. It can't block or slow access to a site because it doesn't like the content or because a site competes with its services. 2 years ago, net neutrality shook up the internet. In 2017, Ajit Pai and the FCC voted to repeal Obama-era FCC net neutrality rules established in 2015. The new ruling tells state and local governments they cannot create laws regulating broadband service or craft their own net neutrality laws similar to the 2015 FCC regulations. Pai's ruling also only requires ISPs to be transparent about their practices. For example, a provider can slow down or block access to a streaming service like Netflix or Spotify for any reason, as long as they notify you. This is all part of Pai's plan to have the federal government stop micromanaging the internet. Another feature of the 2017 repeal, broadband now falls under the purview of the FTC. So if an ISP doesn't want you to see something, they can slow down how quickly you see it, or even halt it altogether. Again, as long as they simply notify you beforehand. Those who are pro-net neutrality would say that the repeal allows bigger ISPs to become gatekeepers of the internet. The pro-repeal side would say that net neutrality has stifled innovation within the industry, and specifically with building out broadband infrastructure. The battle between both sides has been raging on for 2 years now, and is still as relevant as it was the day the repeal was announced. Early in 2019, attorneys general from 22 states and the District of Columbia, as well as consumer groups and tech companies such as Mozilla, the people behind Firefox, sued the FCC in federal court to reverse the repeal. There were two big questions in this lawsuit. One, whether the FCC had a sufficient reason to change the classification of broadband. And two, whether it has the right to preempt states from adopting their own net neutrality rules. The federal court upheld the FCC's repeal of the rules and its classification of broadband. But the court also denied a provision that blocks states from passing their own net neutrality laws and protections. So the repeal stands on the federal level, but the federal government also can't stop states from setting up their own protections. California, New Jersey, Vermont, Washington, and Oregon, where this company's headquarters are located, have already pushed legislation through to protect net neutrality. And 34 other states have introduced their own bills. This all just sounds like a bunch of party politics. One side doesn't like the other, he said, she said. But why does it matter to you? You haven't noticed any changes since the repeal, right? Take a second to imagine a scenario with me. It's a lazy Sunday in April of 2020, and you want nothing more than to just sit on the couch and veg out to Netflix. But your screen is in a never-ending buffer. Womp womp. But why? Well, let's say your ISP planned to debut their new streaming service on this fine Sunday in April of 2020. And to avoid any competition with Netflix, your ISP has slowed down your Netflix and stifled your Office Marathon to incentivize you to watch their streaming service. Now, I know this is definitely a first world problem and a somewhat trivial scenario, but pro-net neutrality folks say the implications could be much worse. They say the FCC's ruling could essentially stop the internet's flow of important information. The net neutrality debate has been going on for years among politicians, advocates, and the big ISPs. But it's not grabbing headlines like Baby Yoda or Cybertruck. Still, the way you get those headlines and the speed at which you get them is very much the issue here.
Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. Wherever you find us, hit that subscribe button. That way you get the notifications when we do go live. We get to have all kinds of discussions here, and a lot of it is about technology and how it can improve our lives. We're going to talk about that and the entrepreneur side of things and small businesses and different ways all of this is converging in a great way for all of those factors. And to do that, we have Sam Hodges, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vouch, who's joining the show. Sam, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So Vouch, we're going to talk about insurance for small businesses, but I want to talk to you about founding this company and what some of the inspiration was for why you wanted to create this.
Absolutely. So we co-founded Vouch about a year and a half ago with the thought that if you currently look at the way entrepreneurs get and then scale the insurance programs they need for their companies, there's just a huge number of frictions in the experience. And in personal lines or kind of the consumer side of insurance, there's been a lot of really positive developments. But frankly, commercial insurance is still very antiquated. It's paper-based. It takes a long time. Oftentimes, the products that you actually get as an entrepreneur don't feel tailored to the business. And so we started Vouch to solve all those problems. And in particular, we're focused on helping very early stage companies get all of the insurance they need to get their business going, and then make sure that they have the right coverage as they scale.
So talking about that from the startup standpoint of somebody who's getting out there and starting a business, what are some of the main insurance needs that they should have when they're getting going and that they could be able to scale later on?
So my general view is that an entrepreneur should really think about covering the property in their business, as well as the set of liabilities or risks that come inherent with their business model. So the property side, usually that's pretty basic. For many companies, it's computers and basic office equipment. Where things get a lot more interesting and frankly a lot more complicated is on the liability side. And if you look at what's happened in the technology sector in particular, younger companies are now being held to similar standards as more mature businesses. And so some of the practices that for a long period of time, were kind of the whole, move fast and break things ethos, I think a lot of people in the ecosystem are realizing that's probably not the right way to build a viable and sustainable business. And so as a result, you have to think about, what are the activities in your employment practices? What are good practices around, managing data and, cyber defense? What are good practices around, governance and linked to that, coverage for directors and officers of a company? And at Vouch, we provide business insurance to meet all of those needs. So again, you can get the basics, but you can also get much more complex liability coverages, which most companies will need as they start to take off.
I think that's a really interesting standpoint too, and important to note that the business landscape has changed to where everybody needs to think about all of these things and make sure that you're covered when you're going forward. Talking about your platform in general. So you get this idea, you want to make it easier, you want to move from this paper-based system that seems a little bit antiquated that other people were doing. How did you do that? And let's talk about your platform itself.
Absolutely. So our platform really comprises two major pieces. First is the digitally native experience that allows anyone who's applying for business insurance to come and in just a matter of minutes to go through a set of very basic questions to understand what coverages might apply for them and their company. It typically takes less than 10 minutes to go through that experience, and you can actually get a quote and then move to check out with zero paperwork and zero latency. So coverage will actually kick in the very next day. The other side of the platform is all of the kind of insurance infrastructure we've built out in terms of actually building custom programs that, again, are tailored to the needs of early stage, high growth technology companies. And so we did a lot of work thinking about, how do these risks actually manifest in companies like that? How should they therefore be priced? And also, how do we make sure that the coverages comprehensively meet the needs of these businesses so that, if bad things do happen, if things break, there's protection in place, because at the end of the day, that's what insurance is really about.
Right, and that's such an important thing. So talking about how fast it is, that's really, I think, a key element, because I think a lot of people, when you start thinking about insurance or anything along those lines, you think, okay, this is going to take a long time. It's going to be confusing. How do I get through all of this? How do you make it that it's that fast?
Sure. So part of it is really around focusing the experience on kind of the archetypes or different types of companies that we know exist. And we got to that by talking to literally hundreds of founders and looking at the insurance needs of many, many different companies. Part of it's also, frankly, informed by our own experience as entrepreneurs, right? I've been a founder multiple times. I've been working in this ecosystem for 15 going on 20 years, and I've seen firsthand how hard it is to get insurance, and also, frankly, how important it is to have insurance if and when things go sideways. And so we really kind of took into account the experience of our founding team and our leadership team, as well as that market discovery work to really engineer an experience that we think is really dramatically superior than anything in the market. Data also plays a really big piece of this. And so we're working with a set of partners so that we can use data to help with both the client onboarding side of things, but then also over time, underwriting and re-underwriting. Because insurance is obviously something that needs to evolve with a company as its risk footprint changes.
Talking about data, actually, that's a question that I had just about cybersecurity and how big of an issue that is for any company. It doesn't matter what size. Cybersecurity is very important. How does a startup business insure themselves in the case of anything happening, in case of a hack or something going on where their data is exposed? Is there an insurance platform for that?
Sure. Well, so I would say that there are really two things to think about. One is, what are a set of activities that a company can pursue to actually reduce their exposure from a cyber perspective. And typically speaking, cyber events happen in one of two ways. Either there's kind of a front door full-on attack, and that would be going after someone's infrastructure, taking advantage of vulnerabilities that have to do with how they've actually set up and manage their software and their data. The other side, though, and actually where we actually see more exposure and frankly more risk events happen, is actually stuff that's kind of out the back door, where the company's employees may actually succumb to a phishing or a spoofing attempt. And the incidence of those sorts of activities is on the rise. There are whole sets of different vendors, technology providers that put in place monitoring tools so you can actually mitigate the risk on both fronts. The other side of the equation is obviously on the risk transfer side, and that's where having a really good, comprehensive cyber coverage that matches to the amount of data and frankly the sensitivity of the data you have. That's also really important. Companies that are handling a lot of personally identified information, quote PII.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in financial technology, sometimes in health tech and in other categories as well. Those are areas where the likelihood that someone's going to target you from a cyber perspective, and also, frankly, the exposure you'd have given the kind of inherent weight of those data, it's obviously a lot heavier.
Yeah, and it's a lot to factor in too. Just thinking about all of those different things as it constantly evolves and changes, and it's what a changing landscape we have, all because of technology, just because of people changing. And looking forward to the next year or the next 5 years, what are some of the biggest issues that you see, other than data, which we just talked about? But are there other issues that you see on the horizon that businesses are going to need to be aware of?
Well, I mean, if you take a big step back, I think as an entrepreneur in the technology space, you have to be mindful of what's going on in the broader world. And I would say that although a lot of signals in the U.S. economy look really encouraging, I think there's obviously a lot of concern around us moving into a more correctionary environment. My personal view is there's still a lot of liquidity in the system. There are a lot of people who are interested in making investments in good companies that are doing things that have the potential to really change the way certain sectors work and really help consumers and companies do their businesses better. At the same time, fundamentals matter probably more now than they did at any point over the last several years. And so, just kind of reorienting how you think about building a long-term viable, sustainable, company, it's just really critical.
Well, this is some great advice. I think it's really fascinating how you've been able to grow this and change up, this previous infrastructure that we had for when it comes to commercial insurance and what people can do. And I want to know for everybody out there, I mean, we kind of walked through it, but just to give them another guideline of signing up, what's the best way for them to do it? Where is it available right now? And how can they get started?
So the best way to sign up for Vouch is to go to our website. It's vouch.us. It's a very short application experience. It takes just a matter of minutes to get to a quote. And our hope is that over time we can serve the insurance needs of a very wide share of entrepreneurs here in the U.S. and over time other parts of the world as well.
Well, Sam, thanks so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to talk about this. It's always fascinating learning about different facets of technology and how it's changing up what we were doing previously, and this is definitely at the forefront of that. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thanks for having me on the show. I enjoyed it.
All right, so that's, again, talking about different tech entrepreneurs and different ways that we're changing up the things that we do because of technology. This kind of covers a lot of that all in one subject. So that was Vouch, that was Sam from Vouch that we were just talking to. We have more technology coming up. So we're gonna have our own Ronan Glahn who's gonna be joining us here shortly to talk about everything going on in the automotive industry when it comes to technology. So in particular, we're gonna talk about this battle between Cybertrucks and the Ford F-150, the E-F-150, and some other trends that he's seeing going on with electric vehicles and all kinds of things. So that's coming up next year on the show. We are broadcasting live. We can take your comments, your questions. If you have questions about tech in the auto industry, let me know what they are. I'll ask Ronan. Maybe he'll be able to answer them for us live right here on the show, because that is what we are. We are live. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Stick around, back here in a minute right after this. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Wherever you're watching, we appreciate it. Of course, you can join us for the conversations that we get to have about technology here on the show. I'm Greg Nibbler, and we like to cover all facets of tech, including the automotive industry, which is ever more present in all areas of technology. We're seeing everything evolve quickly, and a lot of it having to do with electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. We're going to talk about some of that and more. And joining us right now, we have our own Ronen Glahn to talk about all of this. Ronen, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. Excited to talk about everything that's happening. I think we got to go right out of the gate and talk about this impending battle between Elon Musk and the Tesla Cybertruck and the electric Ford F-150 that seems to be revving up. I mean, I guess to get your perspective on this, how do you feel about these two vehicles? And do you think that we have a real, genuine rivalry that's brewing here?
And it's going to be interesting to see how the Cybertruck stacks up against the F-150, but also against the bigger F-250. Tesla said it's going to be a Class 2B truck, which doesn't put it in the same segment as the F-150. The F-150 is a Class 2A. There's a very small distinction between the two, and it mostly comes down to how much they weigh. And as you know, electric vehicles are quite heavy because they need a massive battery pack to achieve a decent amount of range. So that puts them kind of in the next category up. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Cybertruck lands in the Ford pecking order.
So with so being heavy, and that's something that is interesting to take into account too. Do we have any estimates on how heavy the Cybertruck is going to be?
No, Tesla hasn't said how heavy it's going to be.
So it's probably going to depend a little bit, I'm going to guess, on which level you get as far as how big the battery is, because they have those, I think it was 3 different categories of them, like a 250, 350, 500 mile range.
Yeah, exactly. And the weight is going to depend directly on the battery that the customer selects. I mean, if you want more range, you need a bigger battery pack, even though technology is advancing. So sooner or later, you'll be able to get the same amount of range you can get today from a big battery pack, from a medium battery pack, but it's still going to depend on the battery pack the customer chooses.
So let's talk about then the comparison. So maybe it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison with the Cybertruck versus the F-150, even though the hype around the two seems to be that they're going that way. But let's talk about the companies in general, because Ford is definitely making a push towards more electric vehicles. And we talk about Tesla certainly spurring a lot of that competition. How do you feel about the two companies in general, and is Ford ready to take them on directly?
I don't think Ford even wants to take them on directly, to be honest with you, because the Cybertruck is, I can't picture the local utility company, rolling up in a Cybertruck to fix a power line. It's, I guess, kind of more of an adventure focused truck versus the F-150, which has to, you can rent an F-150 from U-Haul or from Home Depot. I don't see that happening with the Cybertruck. So I'm not sure that they overlap in some areas in terms of towing capacity, dimensions, stuff like that, but they're not aimed at this exact same buyer, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that is kind of telling a little bit as far as, the Cybertruck just looks so different from anything that we've really ever seen before, and is, the general F-150 buyer, even if it can pull, like the statistics, like its tow capacity, all of that stuff is better, whether people would still pick it over just because of the design over an F-150. I think that's probably going to be a big deciding factor when it comes down to it.
It is, yeah. And so we haven't seen the electric F-150 yet, but I know it's going to be based on the next generation model that's due out in 2020. And it's reasonable to assume it's going to be what it sounds like. It's going to be an electric F-150. It might get some powertrain specific design details, like it might have, blue or green accents or a different grille, but it's still going to look like an F-150, I think. And it's going to be a body on frame vehicle. I've seen patent images showing how the battery is going to be integrated in the frame. So ultimately it's going to come down to whether or not you want to drive a Cybertruck or an F-150, which is a very, kind of old school looking truck.
Well, going from there, talking about just the electric truck and electric vehicle range, we are finally seeing this push outside of the standard electric cars that we've seen into trucks, pickups, SUVs. Can we get kind of maybe a roundup? What do you see coming out here in like the next year or two, in a broad picture, I guess, as far as this push into these styles, that category of electric vehicle?
I think one of the biggest challengers is going to be Rivian. I'm guessing you've seen the R1T. And the R1S, which were introduced about a year ago at the Los Angeles Auto Show. And that one kind of splits the difference between the Cybertruck, which is, a Cybertruck, and the F-150, which is kind of a more traditional model. It's electric, but it has kind of a futuristic design. It's got a pretty high-tech interior, but it's still more or less a traditional truck. You've also got a bunch of kind of smaller, questionable players in a way, trying to get a slice of the segment. You've got Lordstown Motors, which was born from the ashes of the Lordstown General Motors factory that made the Chevrolet Cruze. They want to bring an electric truck to the market sooner or later. Atlas Motors in Arizona, but I haven't seen their truck yet, just photoshopped images. And interestingly, you also have General Motors, which there was a big strike recently about the fate of the Detroit Hamtramck factory that made the Volt, the Cadillac ELR, and other models. And they wanted to close that factory. They're not going to close it. They're going to keep it around, and it's going to be kind of the company's hub for electric SUVs and pickup trucks. So you're going to see there's going to be one electric pickup truck, and I don't know if it's going to be a Chevrolet or a GMC. They haven't said that yet. There's also probably going to be an electric version of the next generation Cadillac Escalade due out on February 4th. It's going to launch with a V8, but there's going to be an EV model. And there's quite a lot of rumors about the Hummer brand coming back to make EVs, which would be hugely ironic.
Yeah, that would be an interesting push by Hummer to come out with that. I guess it makes sense if you want a really heavy vehicle. I mean, make a giant battery in it. And I don't know about the Hummer market being into an electric vehicle. And that's actually another question too that I want to talk about. Just this, with all of these manufacturers starting to offer electric options or pushing into that, how do you feel about the competition between electric vehicles and just gasoline vehicles in general? Are we seeing the phasing out of gasoline vehicles? Like in the next 10 years, is it going to be all electric? Or how do you see this playing out right now? What are the indications in the market?
I know it's going to depend. It's going to vary from market to market. I mean, obviously Norway there's a huge percentage of electric vehicles, but in the US, I think EVs in 2018 had a 2% market share, which was on par with cars with a manual transmission. So it's going to take a very long while before electric vehicles make up a bigger part of the market than gasoline-powered vehicles. What you will see, though, are more hybrids. I mean, there's a new hybrid coming out every week, it seems. You're going to see a lot more hybrids in the coming years, more EVs too, unquestionably, and you're going to see more compelling EVs, which is significant because for a while they were not, terribly compelling. But there's still, before EVs reach the mainstream, it's going to take a while. There's still concerns about range, and to be honest with you, automakers don't really, they want to sell as many EVs as they need to get through emissions regulations because they lose money. The technology is expensive to develop. Dealerships are also not terribly interested in selling EVs because they're going to lose customers. If you buy an EV, you're not going to come in for an oil change. You're not going to come in for radiator flush. So there's still quite a few hurdles before EVs really become mainstream and overtake the market.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that, the maintenance factor, that, all of that just kind of goes away because you just don't need any of that when you're dealing with an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be maintenance on an EV. You still have tires, brake pads, there's a cooling system, but you're not going to have a head gasket. You're not going to have, leaky exhaust or stuff like that, or a water pump, really.
Yeah, which is great for the consumer, but I can see how that would change up a lot for the industry in general, this entrenched industry that we have for so long.
Yeah, and I mean, car dealerships have historically, they don't make a lot of money on a car that they sell. I mean, the profit margins are really thin. Where they make money is on parts and service. So, that's why they're, broadly speaking, of course, kind of reluctant to sell EVs and to market them because it's lost money for them ultimately.
Well, it's definitely interesting just seeing how all this shapes up, and I'm sure at CES we'll probably see some more news on electric vehicles, I would guess, or some different things being showcased since the auto industry is such a part of that. But definitely going forward through this next year, it's a fascinating discussion and just seeing how it's all going to play out. And we'll keep everybody up to date at Digital Trends. Ronen, thank you very much for joining us, giving us your opinion on it. That is important to know what you're thinking as far as how all this is shaping up. And thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always fun talking and learning about different trends in technology and this electric vehicle battle that's going on, whether it's a battle, whether it's right to call it or not. It's definitely fun, and it's definitely interesting to see how it's going to go, and certainly Tesla's shaking things up with the Cybertruck. All right, we've got more coming up here, though. We are broadcasting live. We have a lot to talk about. We have Rahim Fazal, who's going to be joining us, the co-founder and CEO of the SV Academy. Rahim's going to be talking about their platform and how they're changing things up, and also some great investments that they've been having lately. So all of that's going to be coming up here. We're talking about all kinds of technology, so stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. Again, wherever you are, hit that subscribe button, share the show, join in the conversations that we get to have. We get to have a lot of fun conversations about technology and how it's changing lives. And we're going to talk about online education right now and a whole lot more than that. But to do so, we have Rahim Faisal, who is the co-founder and CEO of the SV Academy. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back here on the show. And I want to give everybody who maybe missed the first time around a kind of a background and understanding of SV Academy, just in general, what some of the issues were that you saw and why you wanted to co-found it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, tremendous amount of elitism in the tech industry. It's very hard to get a job if you don't have the right skills, work experience, if you didn't go to the right school, and if you don't know how to code. So we can think about SV Academy as the non-coding way of breaking into the tech industry and making it in this country. We have a free program. We charge no tuition to job seekers. We provide them with all of the skills and mentorship and job opportunities to break into a role on the business side, specifically in technology sales. We've been doing this now for about 2.5 years. We've generated about $40 million in full-time offers for these graduates, and working with great companies like Cloudflare and SurveyMonkey and Palo Alto Networks and a few hundred others.
Which is so big. I mean, we see so many industries and so many companies, going into the tech industry, but you think about it as the coding thing. It's like, okay, well, I need to learn to code to get into that. And that's a whole other ballgame. So figuring out these other ways to get in there and be a part of it is huge.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you didn't grow up with someone in your family who's had, a sales position or a marketing position in their career, it's not immediately obvious to you as you're beginning your career and trying to make a shift, that there are actually ways where you can break into this industry and make a lot of money for you and your family that don't require you to sit in front of a computer and code all day. The reality is that in most of the industry, at most of these companies, the greatest growth in jobs is actually happening on the customer-facing side. So, for example, LinkedIn just released a jobs report for 2020. Out of the top, I think 7 or 8 jobs, the first 6 were all technical. The 7th job, the 8th job, tremendous growth, customer-facing, technology sales, sales development, customer success. These are some of the fastest growing positions, I think 40, 50% year over year, but we don't talk about them enough.
Yeah, and that is just an important part of the economy, and I think that's great, to educate people that that's even available, that that's out there, that that's something they can do. And I know one of the other things you do, and one of the other missions with SV Academy as well, is to make sure that if there are communities who are underrepresented or are unaware of some of these things, you reach out and you try to bring them up and give them that education they need. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, myself personally, I didn't even go to college, actually. I grew up in government housing. I, worked in retail. I've been fired from McDonald's. I'm an immigrant to the country, my co-founder as well. And the idea is that, for populations who are coming from communities where they don't have access to these types of opportunities, socioeconomically, culturally, racially, and other backgrounds, we specifically look for the best talent anywhere it might be. We don't care. And, we provide them with this fast track that in a very short period of time can really change their lives. And we hope will also help them in turn change the lives of their communities. So right now, we have about 25% African-American, 17% Latinx, 70% first generation. And we continue to look for these under-resourced, disconnected communities that have the talent, but just need an opportunity.
Which is great. Yeah, that's such an important point. The talent is there. It's just you got to reach them and get them into these positions, where they're going to succeed. The company succeeds. Everybody wins. Talking about the courses themselves. So for people going into this, thinking they're going to go into an expensive, long process of going through this, can you kind of walk through some of that side of things?
So first of all, applying to the program and enrolling in the program and completing the program is entirely free. So we don't charge any tuition whatsoever to any job seeker. It's entirely funded by the employers upon hire. That's most important. Second of all, we've designed the program in such a way where it's part-time and can be taken nights, weekends, on your own time, so you can fit in other responsibilities you might have in your life. For example, a part-time job, or in some cases a full-time job, as well as caretaking and other responsibilities that you have in your day-to-day life. But the idea is that if you're really committed to transforming your life, then this is the very best path to do so. And we know through experience now, doing this for almost, coming on 500 graduates, that it's that commitment that's the secret ingredient to really getting through this program and being successful.
Well, talking about success as well, even since the last time that we talked to you, which was several months ago, I know that SV Academy has had some pretty successful announcements to make. And I wonder if you could walk through what some of those are to bring everybody up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot that's happened this year. Some of the announcements that we made public just in the last couple of days are that, number one, we announced an investment from Ashton Kutcher and his venture firm that we're very, very excited about. He in particular is a huge supporter of this mission and vision and has been involved in sort of systems change between future of education and the future of work for the last number of years. And so we're very excited to bring him on board as well. The other one is that a major pipeline of job seekers for us are graduates coming out of public universities across the country. And we don't really teach today sales, human-centered skills as it relates to breaking into the tech industry, really anywhere. There are just a few dozen programs, but there are thousands and thousands of institutions. And so we want to close that gap by providing SV Academy to institutions all across the country. We partnered with two that we announced just recently: Arizona State University and Florida International University, two very large public institutions that have populations of students and graduates that very closely overlap the communities in which we're working in today.
Well, that's great. Congratulations on that, and on all of that. The partnership with Ashton Kutcher, that's great for that investment. And then also, with these universities, and it really helps bring other people up, brings people these opportunities and also helps the businesses. I think that's important too. The businesses are really going to benefit from this as well. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, absolutely. I think like the way this idea sort of came about was talking to employers all across the country, not just here in Silicon Valley, but really everywhere. And when you speak to leaders and CEOs, you hear that their biggest constraint to growing their business is not having access to qualified talent. And we're in particular, specifically in sales and in the customer-facing parts of the business, because that's where they generate revenue. And we need to be doing a better job of that. Involves, providing access to communities which aren't really participating in the tech industry today because of the elitism that we have.
Well, Raheem, to direct everybody where the best place to go is, can you just give them the website that you want to send everybody to find out more information?
Very simple, sv.academy. Very easy to find us. We're also on IG, Twitter, under SVAHQ. Easy to find us. And if you want to learn more, you can also reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or one of the social channels. My Twitter, @Raheem the Dream. Always available, always around. Love to talk about this stuff.
Nice. I love the handle. Raheem, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to talk to you and find out where you're at with what you're doing, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, and thank you for the support.
All right, so very cool. Talking about the SV Academy right there, sv.academy. Go there, check out more information. Really, really fun to learn about that. And that's different ways that tech is changing lives all across the board. We have more to get to, though. I know I need to get to a break. We've got some more news coming up, and then we're going to have Richard Reyna, who's going to be joining us after that. So stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us as we go throughout the show. We'd like to keep you up to date on the world of technology and trending news as it happens, and that's what we're going to do right now. I'm Greg Nibbler, by the way. Thanks for joining us. All right, so let's talk about this. We talk a lot about commercial space exploration, but let's talk about actual governmental space exploration. So this is something that's going to be happening today. It's from the European Space Agency, and it is a launch that they have going up for a new satellite, a new telescope that is going to be space-based. So this is the, it's called CHEOPS, which means Characterizing Exoplanet Satellite. I know it's kind of a stretch that they worked on there, but still, that's what it is. Characterizing Exoplanet Satellite. CHEOPS. So this satellite, though, is going to be very important. So the reason that you want to send these things up to space is that that is the best way to really take a look at everything. You get rid of all of the exposure to light that's here on Earth, all of the distractions that come with these things, and everything that can block out that gathering of light, which is really what you're trying to do when it comes to a telescope. So this one going up is going to orbit about 500 miles above Earth. So just by comparison, the Hubble Space Telescope is only about 350 miles, just, hardly gone at all. 350 miles above Earth. So this is 500 miles above. So it's really far out there. It's also going to have a really unique pole-to-pole orbit. So it's not going around like you normally think around the equator. It's going from pole to pole. But it's also going to do that because it's going to ride that line right between daylight and night so that it can always be facing night. And that's kind of one of the key things. So you don't have to worry about it not being able to do that during certain times as it's going around. You only get a little bit to utilize it when it's not getting all of that sunlight on it. So that's a key thing. So this CHEOPS Space Telescope. Whoa, wow. CHEOPS Space Telescope. CHEOPS Space Telescope. Say that 10 times fast. So here's what it's going to be doing, though. It's going to be searching for habitable planets. That's really what we're looking for with this. So finding these exoplanets, you take a look at stars, you see the wobble in their system. That's how you know that there's a planet there. This is what it's going to do. So if it can block out some of the other light, it can gather more light and find out more about those planets. That's what is going up right now. So just want to bring you up to date from the European Space Agency. This is the CHEOPS Space Telescope that they are launching today. There's some more space telescopes that are going up in the next few years, one from the James Webb Telescope, and a lot to keep track of with there, but it's a very busy time for space exploration, and that is just one facet of it, keeping you up to date here on Digital Trends. All right, let's continue on keeping you up to date with some trending news. Let's talk about some robots. So this is coming from Agility Robotics, and we've talked about Agility before here on the show. They're at the forefront of creating these humanoid robots, but their real thing that they want to do with these is have these be assistants both for deliveries and in offices to help facilitate things that humans would normally do. So they've released a new video showcasing how they're working on their technology for these robots. And if you think about a robot being involved in human space, one of the main things is that they are going to be needing to interact with humans. So the new video that they showcased, this is one of the videos from before where we're taking a look at this robot as it's picking up a package and walking through the office. So that's one of the things that they're looking at, and this is doing it all autonomously. The newer video that they're showcasing, though, has to do with this robot and spatial awareness. So the robotics itself, if you think about it interacting with humans, one of the things it's going to have to do is not get in your space. Personal space is an actual issue. You don't want a robot all up on you, while you're trying to just walk through the office and bugging you. So the video that they showcased is this one where they're standing there and they have the person walking up, and the robot actually backs away from them and tries to keep its distance from the person itself. So it's aware of what's going on, and it's aware of how it's interacting. So that's one of the cool things with it. So this is, again, Agility Robotics, and one of the things that they have been showcasing with what they're doing. And so it's kind of cool just talking about how robotics is changing and thinking about, if these are things that we're going to be interacting with, all of the different facets that you really have to think about when it comes to that. It's not just understanding its job and understanding what it has to do, it's understanding the space around it. So that's something that they're working on. Again, always fascinating talking about robotics and the advancements of them and some of the different things they're going to be able to do and what the important things are that these different companies are working on. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, let's give you one more here. We'll give you one more topic before we take a break. Let's talk about driving and artificial intelligence. And I'm not talking about autonomous vehicles. I'm talking about the AI watching you. This is something we brought up here on the show before. And there are some new regulations going on in Europe where by 2022, all of the vehicles there that are being sold are going to have some kind of an AI that can, and a camera system that can watch the driver for distracted driving, whether that's on your phone, whether that's looking around in the back seat, whether that's somebody falling asleep. You know, these are things that it's going to have. It's going to be required that the car has that. So it can monitor what's going on and then if either alert you to what's happening or notify authorities if that's something it needs to do. And there's a new system from Bosch AI. And so it's this AI-powered tech that that we're taking a look right there. So this would be a camera that goes in your steering wheel and can watch everything that's going on. So see, you got the guy there yelling at the kid in the back. She's upset about something. The kid doesn't care. I'm just analyzing the photo as I'm looking at it. But these are the different things that it's going to be monitoring. And so there's a couple of key things with that. One of the things there, if it's monitoring in the back seat, they said that what it could do is take a look and see if someone, say, left a child unattended in a vehicle. It would know that. It would be able to send a notification to a smartphone, letting somebody know. And then if there wasn't a proper response, it could notify authorities that, hey, there's an issue here. There's a lot that goes on with that, and distracted driving is such a huge issue for so many different reasons, whether it's because we're distracted by our phones, distracted by the tech that's in our vehicles, that it's almost just as bad, and there's statistics that go out there for this, just as bad as drunk driving. And that's why this is being instituted to try to combat that. It's trying to combat our bad habits that we're forming with the tech that we're using. And there's a lot that kind of goes into this. How do we feel about that? How do you feel about AI watching you while you're in your vehicle? I think it's eventually going to become irrelevant. This is going to be probably how people felt about seatbelts originally. I think this is something that we're really going to have to get used to, that this is going to be part of the vehicle. A lot to unravel with it, and it's definitely changing fast, but this is Bosch with their solution, their AI solution to this. And like I said, Europe is already going to be instituting it. I would not be surprised if the US is going to be a little bit slower to adapt to that, I think, for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of regulations and hurdles to get through with that, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be adopting something like that too. So I think it's a discussion that we need to have, how comfortable we feel about it, how we feel about this tech changing, but that's what we're looking at right now. So that's Bosch with their artificial intelligence system that's going to be watching you and some of the technology that they're developing. All right, we've got a lot to talk about here on Digital Trends. We're going to continue talking about automotive technology coming up next. So we're going to be discussing a number of different things, electric vehicles, how that's changing. We're going to discuss some different cameras that are going into cars. So a lot. We've got Richard Reyna who's going to be joining us from CarID.com. So Richard will be here just shortly to talk about that. So stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. And since we are live, we can take your questions and comments as we go throughout the show. So no matter what platform you're on, if you do have some, please drop those in there and we'll address them as we go. And right now, we're going to talk about some automotive technology. To do so, we have Richard Reyna, who's joining us right now, who is the Product Training Director for CarID.com. Thanks so much for joining us.
Greg, my pleasure to be with you today.
A lot of exciting things to talk about in the automotive field. Before we do, though, just to give everybody a little bit of a background, can you explain CarID.com and what it is that you do?
CarID.com is your one-stop online shopping place for everything automotive, interior, exterior accessories, performance parts, and of course, repair parts to fix your car. I do internal training for our employees here, as well as a lot of the writing and editing for our website.
Well, and certainly doing the training, you are most likely up to date on everything going on in the world of automotive technology and everything that's happening in that field, and it changes quick. I wanted to talk to you maybe a little bit about some of the recent trade shows and some of the things that you've seen come out from that. I know SEMA, and can you explain what the acronym stands for, SEMA?
Yes, SEMA is the Specialty Equipment Market Association. So it really is the automotive aftermarket, which we distinguish from the OE, original equipment manufacturers, the folks who build the actual vehicles. SEMA represents all the companies that are manufacturing parts and accessories for the vehicles.
So they had a show recently, and what were some of the themes that you saw from this as far as the industry itself?
One of the big things we saw at SEMA, the show is every November, so it was just last month, is electrification. Now, electric vehicles have been coming out in dribs and drabs, but at SEMA, we saw a wholesale embracing of electrification as a future wave, both on the OE side as well as the aftermarket side. From the OEs, for example, General Motors took an old school pickup truck, gutted the gas engine, and put an electric motor in there, which is pretty cool. What they also implied is that GM might consider making the electric motor available as a crate motor for future hot rodders. So electricity is not just about saving the environment. The manufacturers now see the performance advantage there. And speaking of performance, what Ford did was take a Mustang, take the gas engine out of it, put an electric motor in there, but they included a 6-speed manual transmission. Again, trying to appeal to the performance enthusiast.
And that's an important thing too, I think, for selling this, as people become more and more aware of, I mean, not necessarily aware, but more used to electric vehicles being part of the automotive landscape, is still keeping some of that original, I guess something that's a little more original, a little more with it, like as far as manual transmission, the look, the appearance. Do you think that's an important factor?
I think it is, Greg, because what we've seen with the OE electric cars that have come out is that on purpose, the OE manufacturers have designed these cars to look different. Now, some of the early adapters like that, they appreciate the fact that you drive a Prius down the street. Oh, look, that's a Prius because it stands out from the way it's designed. But a lot of people, frankly, don't want that attention drawn to what they're driving. So we think there's a big segment of the market that wants an electric vehicle that looks just like a gas engine vehicle.
Well, looking at it from something that definitely doesn't look like a normal vehicle that you would see on the road, let's talk about the Tesla Cybertruck and what your opinions are from your standpoint in the auto industry. How do you feel about the Cybertruck?
Well, the Cybertruck, this was, whether you like it or loathe it, doesn't matter, Greg. Let's talk about what Tesla has done. Tesla has come out with a vehicle. They've priced it so attractively. Here's a vehicle that in its all-wheel drive tri-motor guise can go 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, can tow 14,000 pounds, and Tesla claims a range of 500 miles, all at a starting price of around $59,000. So again, looks aside, from a technical aspect, this thing is really breaking through what anybody expects a traditional pickup truck to look like. And that begs the big question: will the traditional pickup truck buyer be attracted to this vehicle? Time will tell. I think they'll take at least a segment of that existing pickup market, but it's going to be 2 years at least before Tesla has the vehicle available for sale.
Yeah, that is one thing. It's a long time to wait for this thing to come out to see how it's going to affect and what the response is. Of course, 2 years from now, maybe opinions start shifting a little bit because in the interim, we do have some other electric pickups that are coming out, right?
Well, and that's a great point that you just made. And what I love about talking about this is that the competition does not stand still. So Tesla's admitting we're 2 years away from these vehicles, the Cybertruck being offered for sale. In the meantime, you've got General Motors saying we're committed to electric pickup trucks. Ford now has finally said we're thinking about electric pickup truck. And you've got a new company like Rivian, which has the money of Amazon behind it, coming out with their electric pickup truck. This is a big market, Greg. For your audience, maybe for people who don't realize this, the top 3 selling vehicles in the country are the Ford F-Series pickup truck, the Ram pickup truck, and the Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck. So Tesla sees an opportunity here. You're talking about the big 3 right now capturing almost 2 million units a year in full-size pickup trucks. If Tesla can get even a fraction of that, that would be a big success for them.
That's huge. I didn't realize all the top 3 were all pickups, all those like mid-series pickup trucks.
They are.
Well, looking at that, and kind of looking forward on the electric vehicle side, let's switch to something else as far as the interior. What were some of the trends that you have seen changing right now?
Connectivity is something that the industry's been talking about for a long time, and you've now seen car makers attend the CES show, Consumer Electronics Show. One thing that I find particularly interesting is how, of course, we all have smartphones. The smartphone is ubiquitous, and now car owners want similar technology inside their cars. So all the car makers have gone to this center screen, which is getting larger and larger. We had 6-inch and 7-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. Now we've got 12-inch screens inside cars. And the car owners are demanding the same kind of technology that they have on their smartphone inside their vehicles. So haptic touch control, the ability to swipe icons, voice commands. This is something that the car makers have had no choice but to change their technology to rise up to that, again, because the car owners are demanding that.
That's it, and that's an interesting way to look at it too, just because we're so used to that, like we need it in all aspects of our life, all aspects of our experience. It seems like that's what people want.
Exactly. So now you've got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, for example. Not all car makers are on board with that, but it's something they're going to have to, because from what I'm reading and seeing, Greg, people are actually making purchase decisions, not based on how much horsepower, not based on fuel economy, but how well do I enjoy the integrated experience of this center console screen. That's actually one of the prime driving decisions behind plunking down your 40 or 50 grand on a new vehicle.
Well, it's definitely interesting to learn about all of this and just some of the different ways that people are, changing up their driving habits, different demands that they're making in the car industry, responding to it. I guess the final thing that we wanted to talk about too is just looking at this, OE side of things and then the aftermarket side of things. What are some of the biggest things that people are purchasing right now and adapting to their vehicles?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, and I enjoy talking about this because of what I call the trickle-down effect, are these cameras that we have in the car. It started off with a rear view camera, which eventually the federal government recognized as being so important that it became a requirement to put in new cars. Now you've got high-end manufacturers like Mercedes and Volvo coming out with 360 cameras. So there's cameras front, center, and rear, which give the driver a bird's eye view of the vehicle. Greg, this is a safety feature. If you're in a crowded parking lot trying to back out, you've got a car on either side of you, you've got pedestrians in front of you, you've got traffic passing behind your rear bumper, the ability to have that bird's eye view and see all around your car is really critical to your driving safety. The aftermarket has stepped up, and now there are 360 cameras that are available in the aftermarket that you can purchase and install on your 5-year-old Honda or Toyota. So car owners don't have to wait for the trickle down for the 360 camera to finally be available in lower price cars. Instead, people can go out to the aftermarket and buy an accessory like that, install it on their car today.
Well, I love that idea that you can, modify things, even from what we first talked about, possibly having these electric motors available for people to modify their vehicles existing, and then now doing this as well. Well, Richard, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. There's so much to unravel when it comes to this. Where should I direct people to go for you and your site?
www.carid.com. That's CARID.com. It's all there, and enjoy the site.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Greg, my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
All right, very interesting learning about some of the different ways that automotive technology is changing, some of the different things that people are doing, and always fascinating having these discussions. And that's part of the fun here of Digital Trends Live, is we get to have a lot of discussions with you. And we broadcast live every day, so I want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that we're going to be talking about tomorrow, because we're live here every single day where we get to discuss all kinds of different technological things with you. So let's talk about what we have coming up tomorrow. I know this, we are going to be joined by Impossible Foods. So we have J. Michael, let's see, let me make sure I have his name right. I just want to make sure I have this. J. Michael Milton, who's going to be in the Digital Trends kitchen. So with that, what we're going to be doing is actually doing some cooking. So live here on the show, we're bringing a cooking segment to you. We're going to be trying out some of their chili con queso and some cocktail meatballs. So that is going to be fantastic. We're going to be trying out all of that. So that's going to be live here on the show. Really excited for that segment tomorrow with Impossible Foods. And also we're going to have Evan Shapiro, who's the new president of National Lampoon. So Evan Shapiro is going to be joining us to talk about the relaunch of the National Lampoon Radio Hour podcast. So they're making a podcast. Now, originally, that was a program where you had the jumping off point from Bill Murray, for Gilda Radner, everybody that's come out of National Lampoon. And so it's really exciting to have him on the show. We'll be talking to him tomorrow as well. And we'll have all the latest tech news right here on Digital Trends Live. That's what you're watching right now. So you can join us at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, wherever you consume content. So please subscribe. Let us know what you want to think. Let us know even after the show if you're joining and what you want to talk about. For Digital Trends, I'm Greg Nibbler, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.